everybody. Today, we are going to be exploring some maps from Call of Duty World at War. Call of Duty World at War. Call of Duty World at War is a 2008 video game. The fifth mainline installment in the Call of Duty franchise. It was developed by Treyarch and, of course, published by Activision. Here we are at Okinawa, because World at War is based on World War II, and it covers the Pacific campaign of World War II, along with the Eastern Front of the European War. The fighting between the Soviet Union and Germany. So the campaign is divided into two parts. In one part, you play as an American soldier conquering the Japanese outlying islands and fighting in the Pacific. And in the other part, you fight as a soldier in the Red Army invading Germany. So this map is set in Shuri Castle on Okinawa. The Battle of Okinawa was the deadliest battle of the Pacific War, with somewhere around 250,000 deaths resulting from it. And I think that's just combatants. I don't believe that includes civilian casualties. And these paintings are, I believe you would call these sumi paintings. They're that famous style of kind of monochromatic ink wash type paintings, like a monochromatic watercolor. You see it in Japanese culture, Chinese culture, I think Korean culture as well. Painting style popular to that area of East Asia. And the very beautiful style, sort of impressionistic, meant to evoke more of the essence of a scene than necessarily its literal appearance. And over here we have a generator. It seems to be leaking oil. And a map. Some kind of tactical battle map of the area. Perhaps showing various defenses and such. This is a beautiful area. The cherry blossoms and the old architecture and these statues of dragons towering high above me. We are playing as the Marine Raider faction in the multiplayer mode. Depending on which map you are playing on, the two teams are either the Marine Raiders versus the Imperial Army, or the Red Army versus the German Wehrmacht. Here we have some statues of lions or tigers. More paintings, lots of screens, sliding door screens, window screens. And this seems to be a lantern. I'm not really familiar with this design. The bottom certainly looks like a lantern with the lens there and something inside that could be the lighting element. But I don't understand what that little hanging piece is above. I'm sure it's a lantern, I just don't quite understand the design. So, World at War has a very good campaign, but of course it also has this multiplayer mode. And I will say, I didn't actually play much World at War multiplayer at release. I played the Call of Duty games, but only very little of the multiplayer until Modern Warfare 2. Modern Warfare 2 was my first major incursion into the Call of Duty multiplayer ecosystem. And from then it was a mainstay game for me, playing it with people from school and such. So you can see much of this castle is made of wood. A lot of the Japanese buildings were made of wood. It's partially what made the fire bombings done by the Americans so devastating, such as the firebombing of Tokyo, because the amount of wooden buildings allowed the fire to spread very easily and cause tremendous damage. Here we can see the Japanese flag, the flag of Imperial Japan. This is a beautiful view here. The misty distance. Sort of a garden area out here to the south. Small shrine structures. And those gates, those famous Japanese gates, which I can't recall the name of. But I believe they are based off of rooster posts, sort of course, roosters crow in the morning very loudly. And we have some of these little shrines, little sculptures. And I believe those Japanese gates are designed like that because they are references or shrines to the Japanese sun god. Is that right? Amaterasu, I believe is the name. Who I think has some connection to the Japanese emperor. I believe the emperor is supposed to be Amaterasu's incarnation or something like that. I am not, an expert on this, just trying to remember my Japanese history and culture. So I could have some facts wrong. Some lovely trees here. So we can make our way down from the main section of the castle. Oh, look at this view. Looking out over Okinawa, the smoke rising in the distance. Of course, this is set during World War II, so there's a lot of devastation and damage in these maps. Many signs of the tragedy of the war. And this castle, Shuri Castle, was basically destroyed during the American invasion of Okinawa. It was bombarded from offshore, I believe, by American ships. I believe it's been rebuilt today and can be visited. Here we have some red tinted window slats. If we step outside again, we can see the path up to the castle. A set of stairs leading up past the flags. So, as I said, I didn't play much World at War when it came out. But in later years, I did play it somewhat. Here's a small water feature with a bridge extending over it. The red railings, the cherry trees shedding their delicate pink leaves. Very, very beautiful. Very, very beautiful. Very beautiful. Here we have some kind of propaganda poster. Perhaps a recruitment poster. And World at War is a fairly well-regarded Call of of Duty game. And what's interesting about Call of Duty, if you're unfamiliar, is that it has long been developed by multiple development studios. So they're on kind of multiple tracks of development. So this is a Treyarch game, but other Call of Duty developers include Infinity Ward and Sledgehammer Games. And so by having multiple developers, it allows Activision to publish a Call of Duty game every year, while still giving the development studios time to create their game. Although that isn't to say that there aren't still issues with crunch and too much work in too short of a time on the Call of Duty games. It's a very tight schedule and a lot of work. So here we are on the map, Cliffside, and I believe this is based on a section of the campaign where you're invading Okinawa, so I think this is still part of the Okinawa island. And I'm not sure what these are exactly, these barbed wire or just wire wrapped pillars of boulders. Probably a sort of defensive construct, something to ward off landing craft, make it more difficult to land on the coast. Look at all those batteries on there, those gun batteries, sort of missile launcher looking things. So we've got ships out here, destroyers, and I don't know if there's an aircraft carrier out there, but aircraft carriers were a critical part of the American fleet in World War II. They were sort of the centerpiece of the American war effort. And I believe they basically have been ever since. Aircraft carriers, I think, have formed the sort of core of naval forces since World War II. This was another aspect where I believe the Japanese use of wood proved to be detrimental to them. Because if I'm recalling correctly from my hardcore history podcast with Dan Carlin, which is a phenomenal podcast if you are interested in history, I believe the Japanese aircraft carriers utilized wood, and it made them very vulnerable. I am a history buff, although I shouldn't say that. I don't really know enough history to call myself a buff, I suppose. I'm just somebody who enjoys history, enjoys learning history. But I'm not, I don't have an encyclopedic knowledge of history or anything like that. I guess I would say this, I'm not a history hobbyist, just somebody who enjoys it. So, Hardcore History with Dan Carlin is my favorite history podcast, but he only releases very, very infrequently. It's like, at this point, I feel like 2 or 3 episodes a year. So, it's not enough to really fill out the history diet. But it's very enjoyable. I also like the history of Rome, revolutions, the rest is history, I think. It's two British historians. We've got a gun turret here, destroyed. The metal all blackened and twisted. Seems like it would be hard to get a target. Here, it's looking out right into the trees. Some more sculptures. Are these like little spirit houses or something? I'm just remembering from Spirited Away, the Studio Ghibli Hayao Miyazaki film, of course. That at the beginning of that movie, they see a bunch of little stone sculptures, kind of like that, and they're called, little houses for spirits. But could be something else, could be religious sculptures, maybe. I don't know enough to say. So, coming back around Cliffside here, let's explore the other side of the island now. All these barrels and crates, a little tunnel through the rock, a ruined bunker. We can creep through it. Sandbags, palisades, barriers of logs. And ruined concrete and rebar. And here, a small cliffside path that overlooks much of the map. And there's an explosive barrel over there. Do you think we can pop it from this distance? Let's see. I missed. Let's try that again. Maybe bullet drop off. There we go. I like how this gun reloads. That little latching door at the bottom. The waterfall dropping down into a little stream, heading under the cliff into the rocks. So, by this time, in-game graphics, and I would say even before this a little bit, a little bit in my Halo Combat Evolved video about graphics and how there was this kind of transition in the early 2000s from the very polygonal, very simple, very simplistic, very simple, very simplistic. Welcome to the Department of Redundancy Department, right? But how over the early 2000s we moved from the very blocky, very, video gamey 90s style of graphics into a much more realistic depiction of things in games by the end of the 2000s. Or even by the latter half of the 2000s, really. And so, by 2008, with this game, I mean, this is a very realistic looking game. I know that compared to today, it does look old, kind of, right? I mean, it's obviously not up to the par of a modern high graphical fidelity game. But the difference between, also this water looks weird. The way that it is shimmering and moving like that looks strange. Makes me a little nauseous. I would say that this has much more in common with games of today, which came where there's a almost a 20-year gap between now and today. I would say that this has much more in common with games of today than it does with games of 7 years prior. 6 years prior, even. Like, this came out in 2008. And, I mean, we could even say 2007. I would be comfortable because Modern Warfare came out in 2007. I would say Modern Warfare has much less in common with a game from 2001 than it does with a game from 2025. Despite the time difference being much smaller from 2001 to 2007 than from 2007 to 2025. Can we knock? Yeah. We can knock down the coconuts. More strange, shimmering water. There goes the coconuts. And I think it just speaks to the fact that graphics have kind of peaked. I don't mean to suggest that graphics will never get better, because of course they can, but the ability to represent things in a realistic style has remained, in my opinion, largely the same for about 20 years now, for almost 20 years. And it's just been kind of marginal gains since then. Now, of course, this just means that, look, obviously when, Unreal Engine 5 shows off some tech demos or whatever, people, it's stunning, it's gorgeous, and the lighting and all this stuff like ray tracing and whatever, it's all It's all really revolutionized graphics since 2008, but I just mean kind of on a fundamental level. Graphics have not sort of fundamentally changed in their impressiveness, to me anyways. I don't mean to say that a UE5 game doesn't kind of blow this out of the water, but this blows, Halo CE out of the water way more than a UE5 game blows this out of the water, in my opinion. Anyway, this is Makin Day, or maybe Makin Day, I don't know how to pronounce it, but it's the island that this map is set on, or rather the atoll. It is the Makin Atoll. And this atoll was occupied by Japan in World War II. And it has since then become independent. It's now part of the nation of Kiribati. Of course, in World War II, Japan quickly expanded and took over many of the Pacific Islands surrounding it. In the lead-up to full-scale war between Japan and America. Although, of course, Japan had already been fighting for years at that point. I mean, there's a real argument to be made that World War II started with the war between Japan and China. So this is a fishing village, and looks like we've got a bucket of bait here, or chum, or maybe fish entrails from preparing the fish that have been caught. And this village is made of bamboo and palm fronds, thatched roofs. Here we have a trio of canoes stacked in a little pyramid. And what's in this cabin? A rug, some benches, and a table. Oh, here we have a lit version of that lantern. I still don't quite understand what that hang-in segment in the middle is for. Maybe it's a handle or something? I don't know. And palm trees. Palm fronds everywhere. It's obviously a very tropical region. Coconuts, palms, ocean breezes. Here we have another kind of shrine section with these sculpture assets that we've seen numerous times before. Perhaps a religious site. And let's wander down this path, see where it takes us. There's a loop back around. What if we follow down here, through the foliage and the trees? Look how big those fronds are. It's amazing, they're huge. also some sheet metal integrated into this village, along its fences and walls and such. A little ladder to pop us up here. Pretty good sniper position of much of the map. There's a hole in that roof over there. Sand under the buildings, which are raised up on stilts. Many of them, anyways. Over here, we have maybe a storage building. Lots of crates and shelving with boxes and such. Electric lighting. Flag. Another lantern. And some filing cabinets. Perhaps a storage area for the base on this island. For whatever military regiment or whatever was stationed here. We can walk under these stilt sections. Give some nice multiple vertical levels to fighting on this map. And this map is a free DLC. It was released as free DLC for World at War. Here we have some couple of fishing rods here. But they're hooks, barbed hooks there. And there's actually two variants of this map. There is this one, which is Makin Day, and then there's also a night variant. Oh, there was a little explosion. My legless body was over there, but I won't linger on that. I accidentally blew myself up before I started recording this section. Some beds look nice and cozy. Pillows are maybe a little flat for my taste. I usually have to stack two pillows. How about you guys? Are you pillow stackers? Do you like one little flat pillow? Do you have one big chunky pillow? Maybe you use one of those Tempur-Pedic sort of foam pillows where your head like sinks in. I don't love those myself. Something about them, they're not cool enough for me. I like having a cool pillow, and those Tempur-Pedic ones, I feel like they don't give me that nice, fresh, cool feeling when I put my head down on them. Alright, so here we have crossed the globe from the Pacific all the way over to Europe. And this is the map Downfall. This is Berlin. We find ourselves in Berlin. Now, of course, Berlin is the capital of Germany. And the building I was looking at the beginning of this, and we'll get a closer look at it later. I'll circle around and we'll even go inside of it. Is the Reichstag. Right up there, that's the Reichstag. Which is the German Parliament building. And I said on these maps that it's the Wehrmacht versus the Red Army. So we are playing as the Red Army, as you can see in the bottom left, the crossed hammer and sickle. This is a level based off of the campaign, as many of these multiplayer maps are. In the campaign, we storm the Reichstag, and the character Victor Reznov is with us. Victor Reznov, another soldier in the Red Army. And Victor Reznov goes on to be a major character in Treyarch's next installment in the Call of Duty franchise, the Black Ops games. Call of Duty Black Ops is their next game, and Victor Reznov plays a major part in it. So, of course, the campaign from the Red Army invading Germany was a brutal, brutal campaign. Of course, Nazi Germany under Adolf Hitler invaded the Soviet Union in Operation Barbarossa. And it led to some of the most brutal fighting in all of World War II. And once the Russians, or the Soviets rather, were able to turn around and repel the German advance, they just marched back west and got their way into Germany, and then of course took Berlin. So in this map, Berlin is ravaged. As you can see, all the destruction here. I mean, the city is in ruins. The Reichstag across the way. The debris and rubble. The dome up there of the Reichstag on top of it is kind of an iconic element of its design, of its architectural design. Today, the Reichstag still has a dome, but it's kind of a cool design. It has this sort of spiraling bridge that you can walk up inside of the dome, or a spiraling ramp, or maybe stairs or something. And then it has this central column swooping down in the middle that is layered with many kinds of mirrors. Or not kinds of mirrors, but just different mirrors with slightly course, World at War has vehicles that you can use. We've passed by a couple of tanks. And vehicles would not be a part of Call of Duty multiplayer again for a very long time. In fact, I don't really know the next time that they would return. I think by the time I stopped playing Call of Duty, they had still pretty much not made a return. I could be mistaken. I mean, of course you had kill streaks like chopper gunners and whatever, but those, I mean like the tanks in this where you can just walk over and hop in. We have a broken statue here. Seems to be alluding to a kind of Romanesque figure with a cuirass on. A very long neck. Looks like a very long neck to me. Oh, and here we have a broken off arm here. Maybe fallen from up there. We can make our way underground here. Look through above. The light coming down. Another statue, this one of an angel. Perhaps Michael the Archangel, or just some random angel, I don't know. But seems to be crying. Their head in their hand. Look at that building across the way. And let's start making our way towards the Reichstag. We have a little fountain here. Of course, the water is stale and fetid, as the fountain is not functioning anymore. An overturned vehicle. And this little ruined section here. This structure that is completely decimated. Its walls crumbling, its roof with holes in it. And a little slit in the window here to look out. Of course, the damage to European architecture and infrastructure in the aftermath of World War II was immense, absolutely immense. The United States undertook what was called the Marshall Plan, a sort of stimulus for Europe after the war. Money to help the Europeans rebuild. Alright, let's find our way up the steps of the Reichstag. Oh, look at this. For some reason this gun turret is funny to me. It looks like the snout of a dog. What was that meme a while ago with the, that dog with the long snout? With the very long nose. Something about that just, it gives me vibes. That long bent turret gives me vibes. trucks, and tanks, sandbags, more defensive fortifications. And up here to these columns. Does anybody remember their Greek architecture? Are these Ionic or something? I don't remember the differences. Oh, is it Ionic columns? Was it a Corinthian column? And then a Doric column? I don't remember. Or even the differences between them. One of them, I think, was fluted like this, carved like this. The things that you learn in elementary school. The 3 types of Greek columns. Alright, so here we are on top of the Reichstag. Down there in the mist, we were just wandering around. Although, of course, you can't really make out the details from up here. And now we have ascended to the top of the building and can look out at Berlin. The smoke rising in all directions. The sky stormy, gray, and dark. And this is where the World at War campaign ends. You storm up to the roof of the Reichstag and raise the Red Army's colors, indicating the fall of Berlin, and that it has been taken over by the Red Army. And then some Soviet theme plays, maybe the national anthem of the Soviet Union or something. And then the credits roll. This is the last of the kind of old school Call of Duty games, I would say, in the campaign sense, where you're basically just playing a grunt soldier in a war and fighting through the war. The year before Modern Warfare came out, and that one saw you playing as a kind of a special operative in the SAS. And there was half of that campaign where you were playing as an army ranger, I believe. Well, I mean, you played as a handful of characters throughout the campaign. But the bulk of it, you were playing as Soap McTavish. Right? Wait, Soap? I mean, his name was Soap. I just remember. Was his last name McTavish? Wasn't Captain McTavish? Price's captain from the flashback mission. Anyway, regardless, the kind of main thrust of Modern Warfare's campaign was you as basically a special operative running around the world doing small team missions and being kind of a superhero type of soldier. Not really just a grunt capturing land foot by foot, but running around securing nuclear weapons and stuff like that. And that kind of became the MO for Call of Duty moving forward. So this year, 2008, of course, saw World at War. Look at that dome all broken down. This is historically accurate. You can look up photos of the Reichstag after the war was over, and I mean, it looks just like this. The dome is kind of half crumbled. But yeah, after this one, the campaigns largely became the stories of, super soldier type characters who run around the world stopping global catastrophes or whatever. Which was fine. I mean, I enjoyed the Modern Warfare campaigns and the Black Ops campaigns well enough. But there was something I missed about the kind of grunt war stories that were told in this game and the earlier Call of Duties. You can fall down into that pit. It's a big drop. So this map is kind of centered around this central area in the dome, and then it has that outdoor section, and then these two sections on either side of the dome that allow you to kind of move around on the sides, flanking people and such. Some electric lights, some floodlight type elements there. Pipes, holes in the brickwork, the walls crumbling, the girders collapsed, fallen from the ceiling. Just total destruction. Pipes in the little back room area here. Well, that's interesting. She's all ears. Careful what you say. That's an American propaganda poster. That probably shouldn't be here, at the top of the Reichstag, in the heart of Nazi Germany. But that's game development, right? You just, you use the assets you have, and sometimes you might make a little mistake, or something doesn't quite belong where it goes, but you do what you gotta do to get by. Making a game is hard enough. So up here, we can look back out over Berlin. The fog obscuring the ground. Some windows here, opaque. Can't see through them, just let a little bit of light through. Some barbed wire wrapped around these posts. I'm not sure what the point of that is. I guess to stop people scaling that post for some reason. Barbed wire is very scary to me. Or not, I mean, scary is not a monster, just scary to me in a sort of physical sense. Seems very horrible. That fallen cap piece there, and we can hop onto this girder here and walk down. There we go. You could also walk up there if you like. Let's go check out the other side. Not a ton to see on this map in here. It's largely mirrored, but they've got this little inaccessible area past the sandbags. And here, some collapsed rubble, couple of fires burning away with no fuel. Very strange. And then some kind of propaganda poster here. Some Hitler Youth looking kid. Tag der Wehrmacht. Is this like a movie poster? Looks like it's a date below it. 17th of March, maybe, 1945. Oh, we've got some items here. Some cans. Sardines. Can of sardines. And then here we have Vumond, French. What does that mean? Isn't I or something in Monda's world? Genati. No, that's an S. Senati. What do we have here? Ramona Myrtles, I think. With a little art there of a branch of berries. Oh, here's an unobstructed view of that poster. Tag der Wehrmacht, 1940. Seems like a movie poster, but I don't know. Doesn't tag mean... Wait, what does tag mean? I don't know. My mom kind of speaks German, but I don't really know it. So here we have a little bonus section. I thought it would be fun to do another level here, but not a multiplayer map. This is Nacht der Untoten. Nacht der Untoten. This is a secret level. You must ascend from darkness. You must ascend from darkness. This is a secret bit of content at the end of the game, at the end of World at War, that Treyarch did not announce or market in advance. And it is called Nazi Zombies. And it's pretty much in the name, but you are being beset by a horde of Nazi zombies. And you have to survive. In this dark, misty little building, with all the gloom outside. And this mode spawned a massive franchise, basically, of Call of Duty content. The Zombies game mode became a mainstay in Call of Duty for years afterwards, and is still going to this day. Oh, that little door said help on it, or well, it spells hell. Very spooky. Here's the mystery box. Gives you a random gun if you spend 950 points. And you get points from killing zombies. So, we'll just play this for a little bit. I'll open up the map, and then I'll make a crawler so we can kind of wander around and look for a bit. But, yeah, Call of Duty Zombies, really, an empire. The number of games that have had a zombies mode since then. All the Treyarch games, Call of Duty Infinite Warfare, or no, wait, Call of Duty Advanced Warfare had zombies, and then Infinite Warfare did as well, I believe. That was like a kind of a kitschy 80s themed one, right? Zombies in Spaceland or something. I never played Infinite Warfare. Salvation lies above. So you can clear barriers. I like that, how the couch lands upside down on the ceiling. So now we've opened the entire building. That full moon in the distance, the fog hanging low on the ground, the silhouettes of trees, skeletal trees standing in the distance. You can get rid of that couch as well, but whenever I play this game, my friends and I would tend to leave that one closed so that the zombies couldn't come up through there. So I made a couple crawlers here. Oh, there's more zombies coming. Once we take care of these runners, we can relax a bit more. I was a huge fan of zombies. Like a massive, massive zombies fan. I did all the Easter eggs. Zombies had it had this, it developed from this little fun arcade almost game mode. Because they added a couple Easter eggs, little Easter eggs. You know, something like, oh, there's a radio, and if you melee the radio, then, song plays, or little bits of Morse code, or scraps of paper with cryptograms on them, stuff like that. Here's a max ammo power-up. You always gotta reload before you pick it up, so if you're playing with other people, it's good etiquette to say, hey, max ammo, reload, and then everybody reloads, and then you hit the max ammo, because it doesn't fill your clip. Although in later games it does. So when this started, the Easter eggs were just Easter eggs, right? They were just little hidden treats here or there. And then people quite enjoyed them, and they started to make the Easter eggs more expensive, and eventually you ended up with these. Oh, here's the cabinet with a mystery inside. Who knows what it could be? Well, it's the scoped Car 98K. You don't need to open it. It's not very good. So the Easter eggs evolved into these whole complicated quests, and they were mysterious. You know, when they released, there was no way to know what the quest was. There were no objective markers. There were just little clues, maybe. And sometimes not even really a clue. You just had to experiment at the map and try to figure things out. So, it kind of became a community event, a community thing for Call of Duty Zombies fans. Oh, you can also buy weapons on the wall, like these grenades here. If I buy some grenades and then they phase out of the wall like that. So whenever a new Zombies map would come out, the whole Zombies community would be playing and trying to figure out secrets and trying to figure out the steps of the Easter egg, and somebody would, be like, oh, if you shoot this bell, it causes a ringing, and, maybe that's part of the Easter egg or something. Here's a plane, a crashed plane. I think the idea in this one is that was your plane and you crash, and then you get out here and boom, you're surrounded by zombies. But yeah, the Easter eggs became more and more complex. They became more and more story-based. The playable characters became more fleshed out. They started to have lines and personalities, and it just became this whole thing. So, that tradition only grew more extravagant as more Zombies games came out. The Easter eggs were part of what was so fun about Zombies for me. Me and my friends working together to complete the Easter eggs. Of course, we never figured out the steps ourselves. That was for people online, That was for YouTubers and stuff to figure out, but we just watched the guides, and then it was challenging enough to complete the Easter eggs yourself, even when you knew what the steps were, because they often took a lot of skill and preparation and time and stuff like that. But with that, I think that'll be an end to our look at Call of Duty World at War. I hope you enjoyed our little adventure through its maps. Maybe our little peek at zombies at the end on the Nacht der Untoten, the map that started it all, which reappeared many, many times in future Zombies games. But until next time, my friends, take care of yourselves.